set the stages to sort of define your terms. So, Mark, why don't you start by telling us what that word, what that concept means to you?
Well, to me, it's sort of synonymous with real conscience, with really knowing the difference between right and wrong behavior and then living that, actively applying it in your life because you care to not do harm through your behavior to other sentient beings. And, this is part of, everything that I talked about in my natural law seminar, that true holistic intelligence is not just the intellect, as so many people today seem to think that it is. You can crunch numbers all day long and to me, not really be a truly intelligent person, because you're lacking care of the heart. And this is the generative principle. This is the thing that really creates the human experience collectively. As they refer to it, or as I've referred to it as the lost principle, or the lost part of the seven Hermetic principles. This is the eighth principle in that tradition that I feel surrounds and binds all of the other aspects of the underlying principles of natural law, because what we care enough to do with our behavior is what gets manifested into the world. And that's the second part of intelligence. If you just break the word down, it's the heart-based or generative principle of care is actually inside the word intelligence. The first part of it refers to the intellect, and that would be like the left brain, the just brain-based intelligence in general, being able to analyze things and, being able to see patterns, etc. But then you have the generative aspect of it, the creative side of it. This is more of a not only big picture type of thought, but it is a heart-based aspect, because it is about what we care about, and it is about our care and our desire to do the right thing, to choose right behavior over wrong behavior. And that's where that generative principle, that integrates right into the word intelligence. So that is how I would look at heart-based intelligence. It is true care. It is true empathy for other beings, and it is understanding and really coming to terms with what behaviors are truly right behaviors because they do not cause harm to others, and what behaviors are wrong behaviors because they do initiate harm to others. Taking the time to self-reflect, to look at your own behavior, to look at some of the negative aspects of our behavior that we often don't want to look at. This is shadow work. This is what all occultism really is attempting to teach people to do, to stare into the mirror of the soul and be honest about what is there. And most people aren't doing that because they're so wrapped up in the left brain and in the constant chatter of thoughts. They never engage in any practices to slow down the thoughts of the mind, and enough to basically put themselves into a state of consciousness where they're really doing that type of self-reflective shadow work. And because of that, whole left brain modality that most people just are constantly dwelling in, like a cyclical pattern nonstop. It's just like a hamster on a wheel. They cannot quiet the mind and quiet the thoughts enough to get into that heart-based center, to center themselves and to really do that type of reflection that is so necessary to really gauge whether our behaviors are in harmony with natural law, meaning whether they are actually resulting in harm to other people or not. And this is where our society has to really start being honest with themselves, and also begin to learn practices by which that they can, quiet that ceaseless chatter of the left brain. Just the intellect that never ceases to just constantly spew out, words and thoughts. This is something that goes far deeper than just language. It's something that, it often is not going to be able to be communicated by language. You're going to have to do introspective work with yourself and your own soul. And that's something that most people are uh, incredibly afraid of. It's something that it's the type of work that most people just are so loath to do that they would almost rather they would almost rather die than do work like that. And this is part of my work, is to try to explain to people this is what the most important aspect of this entire transformative process is for ourselves and the world. If you don't do the work upon yourself first, there is no way that you could try to go out into the world and start influencing others, at least not with not without creating something that is not going to be really stable, and at the worst case potentially even harmful. So
Right.
you have to get yourself repaired. You have to work through the traumas. You have to work through the dark night of the soul and the very painful and negative aspects of the personality and your characteristics, of your personality that you may not like, that may be painful for you to look at. But without doing that, there is no self-transformation, and therefore you can never really be a truly positive, influential factor toward others to help them with that aspect of the great work, which is influencing them to then go through the same process. And the self-work must come first. If we try to put the cart before the horse and do the external work first, it's doomed to failure from Jump Street.
Right. Because for me, so much of the dynamic that you're talking about, it comes back to sort of this interplay between the principle of mentalism, which of course is the first one. Everything stems from the mind, from the psychological aspect. And I can say mind is different than your brain being more kind of the intellect, your mind sort of being that holistic consciousness that is all of those different aspects of the mind coming together. And then the law of correspondence. So it all starts with you, and then whatever you're putting out in the world is going to correspond to that first principle. And so if you haven't done that internal shadow work, you're just going to be what we call projectile vomiting all over everyone else, because you haven't dealt with that sickness that's within you first.
Absolutely. I mean, that's a great point. Yeah.
And, as you kind of taking it back to sort of defining terms, I thought it was useful to maybe consider like looking at the chakra system as well, and being that the heart that's why we called this talk the heart of the matter, because it's central to everything. And yes, you have your intellect up here, and that's very important, but then you have the lower, and it's all coming together, and the heart is where it all like meets and activates, your true core being from within.
You have those higher chakras, connection to source, the crown, but then you have the third eye chakra, which is about bringing together the left and right brain hemispheres, being aware, being knowledgeable and aware of patterns that are taking place. The throat chakra, which is about communication and the voice, but not just communicating externally, but communicating with yourself, maintaining an open line of communication with your own soul. Okay. And then, the lower chakras, the base, connection to earth and resources, and being able to actually, work with on the material plane, the desire chakra, the sacrum chakra, which is about, passion and, the desire to learn more and move things forward and be creative. And then, of course, the solar plexus, which is about courage, courage to do the right thing, and this is all these other aspects of the self have to connect into that central chakra, which is the heart chakra. And if we just even look at the chakra system from the Vedic tradition as the planetary system, I've mapped that out in an infographic in the past in some of my podcasts, and showed it, with the sun as the crown, and then moving outward, you would have the third eye chakra would be Mercury, and then the throat would be Venus, and then the heart chakra is Earth. Okay. And then moving beyond that, the solar plexus would be Mars, and then the sacrum would be Jupiter, and then finally the base would be Saturn. But Earth is right there in the center, of that septenary. of energies, and it's that's why everything is happening here. This is where we come to go through that learning process, to go through that developmental process of the soul. That's what this planet is for, ultimately.
Where the heavens meet the earth.
That's right. And that's in the Vedic, the Indus Valley traditions, out of which a lot of the Western mystery traditions derive from, and also Eastern traditions. But then you have, of course, you guys I know are very much into the Norse traditions, which I'm sure you could discuss that even much more in depth than I could, although it resonates quite a bit with me, as well. But I as I understand it, then Midgard, representing basically the earth plane, is that central heart, center. Yeah. In the Norse tradition. So there's an overlap in all of these traditions of different occultic schools of thought, but they're really saying the same thing with different visual imagery and symbolism.